All right, moving on from that deal between the Lightning and the Predators to your Toronto Maple Leafs, Chad, who were super busy today, and they pulled off this one yesterday. This is a big deal for them, so they get Jake McCabe at 50% retained, so 3 more years, 2 after this one, at $2 million, so half of his $4 million cap hit. Sam Lafferty, another good bottom 6 forward, and a conditional 2024 fifth and a conditional fifth in 2025. In exchange for Joey Anderson, Pavel Gogolev going to the Blackhawks, along with a conditional first in 2025 and a second in 2026. So definitely some futures going to the Blackhawks there, but this is an all-in move for the Toronto Maple Leafs. How do you feel?
You want me to start, or do you want Casey to go?
We'll start with you. We started with Case, obviously, with his Devils and the Meyer deal, so we'll start with you. Might as well.
Okay, well, like the deal to me, like I can't even focus on it because of how much has happened today and how many balls are still in the air for the Leafs as we speak. Like they have 9 defensemen, 9 legit NHL defensemen on their roster right now, and only 12 forwards and cap space to work with. And they haven't activated Matt Murray yet. So I truly don't know what they're going to do next. Kyle is keeping me in the dark and everybody else in the dark in terms of what he's going to do. But in terms of this trade, getting Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty automatically makes your team better. McCabe fits in as a top 4 defenseman, and he's there for another 2 years at $2 million retained. Like, there's your Justin Hall replacement next season because he's a UFA at the end of the year. So you don't need that $2 million on the cap. You have Jake McCabe's $2 million on the cap for another 2 years after this one. And Sam Lafferty is also re-signed next season as well. So basically, I mean, depending what they do, your defense is set for next year, and your bottom 6 has a lot of key guys signed, but also a lot of flexibility there too, with more players coming off the books. So talking about this trade and the one they did last week, they got Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari, Sam Lafferty, and Jake McCabe, and they gave up 2 first-round picks, basically, and a couple players in there, whatever. Like, I think the value is great for the Maple Leafs, and I think they're way better right now, and I'm finally I can finally say that they're all in, and I'm super excited about that. Thank you, Kyle Dubas, for doing something. It's so exhilarating, truly. I love both trades.
I like the trade for Toronto. Finally, they're going all out here and trying to win a playoff series, bringing in tough to play against players. That's really what they've been lacking at times, and bringing in McCabe is exactly that. He's hard to play against. He throws his body around like crazy, so that's going to be a good piece for Toronto. And then to have him for multiple years, like, that's great. The value goes up even higher when you talk about those 2 extra years at $2 million. And then Lafferty, I want to manage some expectations here, because he's not a 30-point guy. He's a 30-point guy this year because he's been playing top 6 in Chicago. But he has a Swiss Army knife. He'll play in the bottom 6, and he'll play hard in the bottom 6. Toronto's finally shuffled that bottom 6 around where it's not 4 or 5 of the same player. They've mixed it up. They've got Acciari in there now, Lafferty, Engvall's out. It's looking much better in my eyes. So I gotta like that piece. And then they gave up, I think, market value for a top 4 defenseman. Lafferty's a bonus in my eyes. So this is a good deal.
And if you guys have noticed, like, we're seeing a trend here with trades where 2 players are going together in a lot of these deals. And so I think that, everyone's going to focus on that one guy. Everyone's going to focus on Jake McCabe being a part of this deal, obviously. Solid top 4 defenseman. I've always been a fan of Jake McCabe. As you guys know, he started out as a Buffalo Sabre. He's going to be pumped because that guy has never played a single playoff game in his entire NHL career. He's going to be excited, and he's a good player. I like McCabe. He's exactly what they need. And it's interesting he ends up going to Toronto when a lot of the other Canadian teams were on his no-trade list as well. And
Every single other one was on his no-trade list.
Yeah, exactly. And then Sam Lafferty, again, Case, you said it, Swiss Army knife, a solid bottom six forward who has some grit, and he just fits in so well. So they're adding the right players because we've seen the Leafs kind of go all in before, a first-round pick for Nick Foligno and what have you, but I think they're going after the right guys here. O'Reilly has fit in like a glove. Achari has been good so far. You're adding guys like Lafferty and McCabe and others, which we're going to get to. But yeah, this is great for Toronto. Happy for Joey Anderson. I think he's going to get a great opportunity to play some more in Chicago. And there you go. Yeah, Leafs are all in. I love this deal. I love these two players going to Toronto.
Yeah, and another thing about Lafferty as well, great penalty killer, leads the league in shorthanded goals right now because he's super fast. I think that's an underrated piece, honestly. Similar to how I think Achari was an underrated piece coming from St. Louis in that deal in the ROR trade, because Achari is really good on the dot and is good defensively and brings some grit to your bottom six. Well, Lafferty, I think, will boost the Leafs' penalty killing because that's been a bit of a weakness for them this year. Last year, the Leafs had one of the best penalty kills in the NHL. I think the best that I've ever seen on a Maple Leafs team, and that was mostly because of Ilya Mikheyev, believe it or not. He had a ton of shorthanded goals, and he just played with a pace shorthanded that you just don't really have many guys on the Leafs who can kind of fill that need. So I'm hoping Sam Lafferty now will be a mainstay on the penalty kill, along with a guy like Mitch Marner and David Kampf, who not only are good defensively, but can also give you a bit of a threat at the other end on your penalty kill, which I think is kind of the new age of killing penalties. So I love Lafferty for that reason. It's great that he plays center and wing as well, similar to an Achari, similar to a bunch of guys that they have. So no matter where you are on the ice, whether you're on a guy's strong side or weak side, you can always find a player who has a good chance to win a draw. So I think that's also an underrated thing about Lafferty and Achari as well.
And again, they're not rentals. Can't stress that enough. And really, it's not a lot for the Leafs to handle cap-wise. $2 million, and then I think $1.5 million for this year and next for Sam Lafferty. So that's huge as well. And funny enough, the top three teams in that Atlantic division, they all went out and they got the same player, really. Garnet Hathaway to Boston, Jeannot to Tampa, Sam Lafferty to Toronto. It's going to be fascinating to watch how these three teams fare in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, all right, we can do these, all three of these with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They made all three of these deals today. Starting with a pretty eyebrow-raising one, Chad, I know that this surprised you, certainly surprised my brother, Emerson, because it involves his Washington Capitals. So that 2023 first-rounder that Washington got from Boston, that's going to be, of course, at the bottom of the first round in the Orlov deal. So they send that along with Eric Gustafson, who's had a great year with Washington on the blue line, to the Maple Leafs for Rasmus Sandin. A pretty big deal and pretty surprising. Thoughts on this one?
Case, do you want to go? You want me to go?
You go. It's Maple Leaf stuff. I'm just going to babble. So.
Okay. Well, I am truly shocked and appalled by this deal. Rasmus Sandin, I truly thought was going to be a Leaf for the foreseeable future. Like, he signed for next year at a good cap hit, the exact same deal as Liljegren. Kyle Dubas traded down in the 2018 draft to get Rasmus Sandin. That was actually the first pick that Kyle Dubas officially made as general manager. And it was his guy from the Sioux, an undersized, puck-moving defenseman with a bit of bite. That's exactly what Rasmus Sandin is. The problem, as we all know, he hasn't got a fair, or I wouldn't say it was unfair. He's had a fair shot, but he hasn't been given ample opportunity in Toronto to play big minutes or meaningful minutes. And that was one of the reasons why he came into this season not wanting to sign a contract with the Maple Leafs. Like, he took them right up until training camp because he wasn't sure where he fit in on this team. I'm still just truly shocked, though. I thought they would keep Sandin as long as they could as depth and as a future piece. That being said, great value in return for the trade. Like, really great value. So,
really, that's what I was going to say. It's like the value is excellent when you think about what you're supposed to give up for a top 4 defenseman, and that's really what Eric Gustafsson has been this year. You're supposed to give up a first plus, like a Jake McCabe or all the other defensemen we've seen traded so far, or Love, Ekholm, whatever. I'm not saying that Gustafsson's as good as either of those two, but the value, it's a lot for a top 4 defenseman. You're supposed to give up a lot for that, and now they get a first and a top 4 defenseman. So the value is great, but it didn't make any sense to me at all. I didn't see Sandin getting traded anytime soon. We talk about how much Toronto needs a puck-moving defenseman at this point now, and they just trade the one they have, the one that resembles a puck-moving defenseman the most, other than Morgan Riley, who can't score for the life of him right now. It's a little confusing, but I guess Gustafsson's quickly going to fill that role, and then you get a first-round pick out of it. And slow down with the first-round pick talk, because essentially it's a second-round pick.
Exactly, yes. But, I mean, I'm not convinced that Gustafsson is going to play for Toronto in regular minutes. I think, like, right now they have 9 defensemen on the team. I think Gustafsson might be, like, the 8th, maybe? Like,
I think you run into the case where you're playing a lot of the same guys if you don't play Gustafsson.
What do you mean by that, playing the same guys?
McCabe, Hole, Shen, all these guys are
okay.
Similar.
Yes, I see what you're saying. And I get that. I just don't know where he really fits in, to be honest, full time in the top 6. So I still think they're going to use that first round pick and do something with it. I think as of right now, with 9 defensemen, clearly they're not going to go into the playoffs with 9 defensemen and 12 forwards. It just doesn't make sense. Plus, they still have to activate Matt Murray from LTIR, unless they want to keep him on LTIR until the playoffs. But again, I don't think that's wise either. So once Murray is activated, they'll have almost $1 million in cap space with 9 defensemen and 12 forwards. To me, that is just screaming a deal coming through. And I think it would make sense for a defenseman to go who makes a bit of money and that first round pick from there's so many deals. Who's that even from?
Their name rhymes with
Washington. No, Boston. Sorry. Yes, from Boston. Yes, rhymes with bowl. And I think you get a forward, to be honest. And I think you go into the playoffs with 13 forwards and 8 defensemen and 2 healthy goalies. And I think that makes sense. And if you were to do that, if you were to trade Hull, who makes $2 million, and you already have $1 million in cap space, that gives you $3 million. You could get a player who's worth $6 million at 50% retained, and I think now you have the asset to do it in that first round pick if that's what they want to do. And maybe it's a Tyler Bertuzzi, maybe it's a Brock Besser, who knows? But it's that type of middle 6 player to add scoring depth, because there's no way they go into the playoffs with 9 NHL defensemen. Like, people are going to be unhappy. The players are going to be unhappy if that's what they do.
That's some Tampa Bay shit. They did that.
I guess. And then maybe your extra forward is Matt Nyes if they sign him. I don't know. To me, this just reeks of one more deal coming, and we'll have to see what it is. But overall, I'm happy with the trade, I guess. I liked Rasmus Sandin, but the return was just really great value for basically the Leafs' 7th defenseman.
Absolutely. So grades for both sides, fellas.
I'll give the Leafs B+, and I'll give Washington an A. Honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. That fits for me. The value is good for Toronto. Doing it is a little weird, so I'm going to lower it to a B+. And then Washington, just flipping that pick to get a ready now player and a young guy. That's nice. So
Yeah, like
Yeah, he's
Sandin is a good player. He's going to be a really good player. I guess they just thought he didn't fit. He wasn't going to get into the playoff lineup, so get some value for him.
There was a month or so that he was their number one defenseman.
Yeah. Yeah, when they had injuries this year. Most man games lost. They saw all they needed to see from Rasmus Sandin and thought maybe it's the best time to sell high on the player. Who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. A surprise deal for sure. All right, the next two that we're going to touch on, Pierre Engvall. So we figured that with all of these deals and parts moving around for the Maple Leafs, that one of their forwards was going to be off the roster, and so Pierre Engvall goes to the New York Islanders for a third-round pick in 2024. Chad.
Well, lump in the next one too. The other deal that
Sure.
involved the
So
Leafs.
then, well,
just to get it going.
that
Let's do
makes sense.
rapid fire here. Let's get it going here.
Yep. So then, and then after that, a 2023 third for Luke Shen of the Vancouver Canucks, of course, former first-round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs a number of years ago.
Great story for Shen coming back to Toronto. He wanted to come back by all accounts, and it seems like he's really excited. His wife is currently 9 months pregnant and is due to give birth basically any day. So I don't know when he's going to play for the Leafs going forward. But they like him. I think they like the grit that he brings. But I just don't know if he's one of their 6 best defensemen. Like we mentioned, they have 9 of them right now. So I don't know where he plays or how often. But we'll see. Third round pick. It's magic beans. Who cares? That's fine. And for Engvall, that was a cap dump. You needed to get rid of $2 million basically. And I'm also fine with that. Like you've replaced Engvall in the bottom 6 now by adding Achari and Lafferty, and you've got a lot of other players who do kind of the same thing that Engvall does, like a Kerfoot. So to me, not a big deal to lose him, even though some analytics guys are really high on Engvall. He frustrates the living hell out of me. He has all of the pieces, but he doesn't put it together all the time. One thing on the Engvall deal I'll say is that it's kind of funny that, Dubas, a guy who is seen around the league to like players similar to Engvall, traded him to Lou Lamoriello, who has the reputation for the opposite. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Like Lou likes, more of a Luke Shen type player than an Engvall, and he gets Engvall for a third. So yeah, whatever. These deals are about the cap and about adding depth, so that's fine for me.
It's going to stop being just magic beans soon, Chad, when you have like 3 draft picks in the next 2 years. So I'm exaggerating, but you do need to draft players to have a team eventually. And Toronto is not going to be doing that anytime soon, especially if they flip that Boston first again. So there's a lot going on there, but I think it makes sense. Engvall, it's kind of like a Puljujarvi thing in my mind, where it's like we're beating that dead horse of trying to make him work in Toronto, and it was time to move on from him and shed some cap and pick up a different type of player in Luke Shen. So I'm seeing this trade as Engvall for Luke Shen and having your draft pick a year later. So makes total sense to me. It makes more sense if you had 8 or 7 defensemen. Now you have 9, so I don't know. But Engvall is on his way out. They've got a couple guys for that bottom 6. It's a different look on the bottom 6 finally, so I like it.